Blake Lewis covers the Redskins for USA Today. He's been around the team for a long time. He's got a lot of insights into the team and the NFL as a whole, and he joins us now. Blake, how you doing today?
I'm good, Josh. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, my man. So what I want to get into with you before we kind of do like a little bit more of an NFL big picture was, the Redskins are coming to the end of the season, and everyone keeps talking about what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. The one question I haven't heard enough, though, is if Kirk Cousins does leave, what are the Redskins going to do? Everyone has Kirk Cousins possibly going to 10, 12 teams, but nobody has, I've heard, answer the question, what do the Redskins do if Kirk Cousins does leave?
Well, just in being around the team for a while, I would say that there are a lot of people in this building that like their backup quarterback in Colt McCoy. And Colt McCoy has proven in this offense, and this is his fourth year in the system, he's proven when he's had chances to start. This is kind of before the emergence of Kirk Cousins, but he's had some games where, against the Indianapolis Colts, he threw for 397 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a couple, high 200-yard games in this offense, and, had a Monday night win against the Cowboys in a game a couple years back where they weren't favored to win that game. So he's had some success, and I think just being in the system, the natural person to replace Kirk for at least the short term would be Colt McCoy, and perhaps they still would draft a quarterback with their first-round draft pick and have someone that they could develop for a year or two behind Colt McCoy, who still has a couple years left in him.
If they did go the quarterback in the draft route, not to name any specific names, but is there a type of quarterback that you think Jay Gruden would target? Because we know that, whether it was when he was in Cincinnati or when he was in Washington now, he seems to be very particular about how the offense is run, the kind of quarterback he wants running it.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, he's had success with whoever he's had. I mean, he obviously turned Kirk Cousins into a franchise-type quarterback. A guy's getting ready to get paid a lot of money this offseason. And, he had Andy Dalton. When Andy Dalton was a rookie in Cincinnati, he made the Pro Bowl, threw for over 4,000 yards. So I think there's no secret that Jay Gruden can produce top-flight quarterbacks, as far as stats. Now, the question is, what kind of guy would he need here? I think one of the deficiencies in Kirk's game is his arm strength. I'm not saying he doesn't have an arm, but he's the kind of guy that needs to really have some space and time to, set his feet to make a throw. Unlike a guy that, like an Aaron Rodgers that can throw a ball 40, 50 yards on his back foot. I think that that's what they kind of need here. And especially, as I talk to you right now, out here in the cold, 20 degrees, you think about that. This is NFC's play. You need someone that can put the ball in the air, make some deep throws or some hard throws in cold weather. And I think if that's the case, you look at a guy, I don't think he'll be there for the Redskins, but I think, Sam Darnold from USC clearly would be my first choice if they had a guy. But because of that, him being gone, maybe there's a guy like Josh Allen from Wyoming. He might be a guy that, right up there in your market. You see a guy like Carson Wentz come from South Dakota, and, people were like, can he play at the highest level? I think he's proved to everyone that he's going to be an elite, franchise guy. Maybe Josh Allen could be that kind of guy for the Redskins.
I'll tell you right now, I've seen enough of Josh Allen personally to say if I was the Redskins or anyone working with the Redskins, I would advise him not to draft him. I'm just letting you know right now.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just saying, for me, the guy I like, people scoff at me for saying this. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. I am. And, one of the reasons I like him is because I think he's got a big upside. I don't think he's had the, I don't want to say proper coaching, but I don't think he's had pro caliber.
Oh, no, you're not wrong with that at all. That Bobby Petrino offense is literally made to be a gimmick. And he has an elite athlete in a gimmick offense. Totally.
Absolutely. So you think about that, and you think of, what this guy can do if he's coached up properly. And again, that goes back to Jay Gruden. And another little tidbit that I keep throwing at people is, Jay Gruden's a Louisville guy. That's where he went to school. That's where he played. Lamar Jackson, Louisville guy. And I'm sure a coach isn't going to, put his whole fate on a person from his alma mater. But still, at the end of the day, this is a guy that I do think has NFL potential. Some people have him, in mid first round. Some people don't think he's going to be in the top 2 rounds. I think he's a first-round talent that if you're a team that definitely needs a quarterback and you can't get one of the top 2 or 3, pro-ready quarterbacks right now, maybe he's a guy you take a look at.
We're talking with Lake Lewis, covers the Redskins for USA Today. Follow him on Twitter at Lake Lewis. Lake, Daniel Snyder has now owned this franchise for a couple of decades at this point. What is his vision for this franchise? What is his vision for this team? Because it seems like he's gone through so many coaches and so many quarterbacks and so many changes and so many botched contracts. I don't really know what the direction of this franchise is.
Well, you're not the only one. I mean, for us who are out here every day, we don't know either. And one thing I will say, and not to, be an apologist for Dan Snyder, but I will say this. He's stepped out of the way a lot, more so than people realize. My issue with that is perhaps he has the wrong people running the team. Maybe Bruce Allen isn't the guy that you should have basically be directing and orchestrating things here out at Redskins Park, and that does seem to be what we all think in the media is going on here. Clearly, Snyder has input, but I do think from afar, and I'll just give you examples. A couple of years ago, you would see him out on the practice field every day, talking to Dan Snyder. I think I've seen him on the practice field all year long this year, maybe 2 times. Last year, maybe 4 or 5 times. So it's dwindled year by year. This year, it basically was non-existent as far as visibly being able to see him. I don't know if that says he's not doing anything. It's his money. Obviously, if you own something, you're going to have input. But, Jay Gruden, another guy, signed an extension in the offseason, 2-year extension. And, should he come back next year, which we all think he should be brought back, that'll be his 5th year. And, Josh, that's the most any coach has ever coached in the Dan Snyder ownership era of 25 years. So, they're trying to have some stability here. You can't stop an offensive coordinator, like Sean McVay from leaving when he has an opportunity to be a head coach. But by and large, the coaching staff here is the same group that's been here for several years. Even the defensive coordinator, Greg Minuski, was here on the staff as a outside linebackers coach, and now he's the coordinator. So they're trying to keep things close to the vest as far as keeping continuity and things intact. So maybe that says a little bit about what Dan Snyder's thinking.
Like, venturing away from the Redskins for a bit, I want to get your perspective. You've been around a lot of locker rooms, a lot of players, and this situation with Eli Apple this year, starting with all the times he's been a healthy scratch, the incidents on the sideline, the incidents with the coaches, now he's suspended for the last game, Landon Collins making the comments he does, having to backtrack on them. As a guy who's been around a lot of players, what is your perspective on this whole situation? Because it seems like part of it is a culture issue with the Giants, that this team is just absolutely has no discipline or structure. But on the other hand, this seems like a player who legitimately doesn't understand what it means to be a professional athlete.
Yeah, it's a sad situation. I was just talking to someone here in our media room who knows the kid pretty well, and it's just it's an unfortunate situation, and it doesn't help that his play hasn't been where he was drafted to be. And I think when you don't play well, you kind of open yourself up for any criticism at the end of the day. And, when you're getting called out by, one of your locker room quote-unquote leaders in Landon Collins, that's not good. I also think that it's a frustration, that's just boiled over. The Giants are a major disappointment as a team. They're supposed to be a team that could contend for a Super Bowl. And, all year long, they've been a train wreck. Fired their coach, McAdoo. They got rid of Jerry Reese, their general manager, which you and I both know Q was jumping up and down on that. But for the most part, I just think that whole thing, when you have players bickering and fighting, it's frustration brewing. I will say Eli Apple, to me, there's no way he can play in New York. There's just no way you can bring him back in that locker room under any circumstances. He's not. It's apparent that he's not wanted in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that.
Lake, one more before I let you go, and I always appreciate you coming on, especially on short notice. The Eagles, no Carson Wentz anymore, Nick Foles. We've seen basically three different versions of Nick Foles at this point in that offense. You've seen them a couple times this year versus the Redskins. You see them throughout the season. How far do you think, as constructed now, can the Eagles go in the playoffs?
I think they can go really far. They're more than just one player. And don't get me wrong, Carson Wentz is a generational type player to me. I mean, he's got all the tools. But the Eagles have a lot of good things going for them. And the best thing they have going for them is they have home field advantage throughout. Unfortunately, we've seen the Eagles' history when they've had home field advantage. They've laid some eggs up there. Let's just call it like it is. But I think this is clearly, different group, different team, different times. And they play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I think that's going to fare well for them. I just think for the Eagles to be able to have a nice run, with Foles as the quarterback, they need him not to turn the football over. That's any quarterback, but especially with him, because he has been known to be a turnover machine. If he doesn't turn the football over and they can get a little bit more out of their running game, I think that the Eagles can make a run at the Super Bowl. I'm not predicting them to go to the Super Bowl. I think Minnesota is my pick right now out of the NFC, but I think the Eagles, as long as they get a favorable first divisional round game, I think they can do something. For me, who's favorable, I don't think you want to see Minnesota somehow not be a number 2 seed. You want them to be a number 2 seed, and you get them in an NFC championship game. I think a favorable matchup would be perhaps, New Orleans, even though they can move the ball. I think the weather could play a factor for a team like that. I think Minnesota and Carolina are the two teams right now that the Eagles don't want to have be their opening divisional game.
He is Lake Lewis. Follow him on Twitter at Lake Lewis. Covers the Redskins for USA Today. Lake, appreciate the time on a Thursday. Go back inside and warm up.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot, man.